Scott Brodie is one of Australia's leading thoroughbred retrainers, helping horses and humans forge a great partnership to ensure a fantastic future together. So what do racing owners need to know when they're trying to rehome their thoroughbred? And equally importantly, what do their new homes need to know to look after their horses and keep them happy and healthy?
It's all about training, and it's all about communication. So, it's definitely not just about getting on and riding and hoping for the best. You've got to have some ideas in your head and some plans in your head, short-term goals and long-term goals, and as long as you stick to that, things to come together pretty smoothly.
There are so many different models within Australia of, what might or might not work for an owner wanting to rehome and have their horse retrained. What would you suggest are some of the first steps for an owner that, obviously doesn't have a property, they might have a few shares and a few horses here and there, and they want to do the right thing? What are the first steps?
I think what they should do is look for someone that's got a reputation, someone that they know has done a lot of it before. I'm not the only one that does this to this level, but I've done probably 1,000, retrained 1,000 ex-race horses. So someone that's done it regularly and been successful, 95% of the time, well, most of the time, they're the sort of people that you're looking for. Most of those are going to be your higher level equestrian riders or higher level trainers. It's not just, your average Joe in the backyard. Because there's a lot of people that will say they can retrain a horse and they'll retrain a horse for themselves, but someone that can retrain a horse for other people is a bit of a rare commodity, really. Usually when I start, the first thing I want to do is make sure I've got the horse's attention, because a lot of time you start to work with a horse, they're looking off into the distance or they're fired up and they're not paying any attention to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask him to face me and really face me. And if I move, I want him to understand that the only time I'm really going to let him relax is when he puts his eyes on me. And if he doesn't move quickly enough, I'm going to give him a little jerk and get him to face up. Stand. Good boy. Stand. If I move, he needs to move with me and he needs to stay focused. Like any time that you're working with an audience, if you haven't got their attention, back up, brother, back up. If you haven't got their attention, then you can't educate them. So I want him focused on me and waiting for my next command. I think the biggest thing that we need to do with the ex-race horse is get them to understand that there's some vocabulary, that there's some conversation going on, and that we're gonna have that conversation. And if we can have that conversation, we can start to think about education.
What does it cost? I mean, if someone wanted to say, look, I actually want to put the money in this horse, whether they've won a lot or not, I actually want to spend some money to make sure this horse has a great progression from the racetrack, or if it even hasn't raced, into a good new home. What sort of time frame and what sort of costs are you looking at?
Look, I mean, personally, I like to have a horse for 10 weeks. And I charge $400 a week to train the horse. So you're looking at about $4,000 to get the horse trained. And by the end of that training period, you may sell the horse for anywhere between 5 and 10 if that's what you want to do, or you've got a horse that's worth something. If people are just taking horses and getting them for nothing or paying $1,000 for them, then, if it seems too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, and that's where they fall through the cracks, isn't it?
Because the rules of racing have changed in relation to what has to happen with horses at the end of careers, and in a positive way. Horses need to be rehomed and looked after at the end of their career. That's great. But there's a lot of people that have put their head up and say, I'll retrain a horse, that don't really have the ability to do it. 50% of the horses that I get here are horses that are coming to me from other organisations or other people that haven't been able to do a thorough job, and people are getting hurt. It's a little bit like the pink bats thing that we had years ago, and suddenly everybody was installing pink bats and people got hurt and killed. So we've got to make sure that there's some regulation and some scrutiny of the people that are retraining horses and putting them on the market. Once he starts to understand that I'm asking a question and he's got to find the answers, then we're on our way with our training. If they don't even understand that there's a question, there's not much likelihood they're going to find the answers.
And the equestrian people that are wanting to take thoroughbreds on, I mean, we know what a fabulous animal they are. They're so sensitive and so athletic and have so many great attributes. But they are different to other breeds, whether it be warm bloods or ponies or stock horses, quarter horses. What are some of the specific things they need to consider if they want to take on a thoroughbred?
So firstly, you've got to, as you said, they are very versatile. There's really no sport that you can't do on a thoroughbred if you go about it the right way. But the education has to be correct. So firstly, I think is what we've spoken about, is making sure that the education is thorough and correct and consolidated. because I could probably jump on a horse and make him look good in a week, but he's going to fall apart in the next week when someone else rides him. So that consolidation is really important. The education is consolidated. Don't push them too fast. Let them ease along. Basically, when they come out of racing, they've learned a lot of good stuff that relates to racing, but they haven't learned a lot of good stuff that relates to other equestrian sports. So, understand that they've got to be reconditioned to that new environment. Think about making sure they get a break after their racing, because most of them come out of racing maybe not unsound, but sore. They're athletes, like a football player at the end of the footy season. They need some time off. So put them in the paddock, let them relax, let them come down, let them settle down from the racing situation. Probably better to be a bit flat before you start to retrain them, then retrain them slowly. Think about the feed, feed them to the work that they're doing. Obviously you've got to look after them because they are a fine animal. They don't carry a lot of weight, so we have to be careful that they don't get too underweight. Make sure we're giving the right amount of feed, but not so much feed that you can't control what they're doing. You don't want them, you don't want to fatten them up too fast. Management's probably as big a drama as riding when it comes to horses being successful at the end of their careers, because a lot of people don't manage them that well. They want this horse to be fat, and he's a machine. He's a racing machine. The more energy you put into him, the more he wants to use it. So you've got to balance out the amount of work you're doing with the amount of feed that they're having and make sure that's correct. In total honesty, they can't live on grass. Grass is not enough for a thoroughbred. They've been bred to do the things that they do. They do have a fast metabolism. They need hard feed. They need to be rugged. They don't cope with too much rain. They don't cope with too much heat. They don't cope with too much humidity. They need to be looked after, rugs on, rugs off, and they definitely need to be supplemented in their feed. And as you said, I can take you up here and show you a herd of horses, and 90% of them are fat. There's a couple of skinny thoroughbreds up there because they're just eating the same grass, and they can't do that. They need to be fed that extra supplementation.
And there are so many great rewards now for people taking on thoroughbreds. There's extra prize money and prizes at so many different classes, thoroughbred classes. What would you say to someone tossing up taking on a thoroughbred?
As Australians, we've always been thoroughbred people. Some of the first horses that arrived in Australia were thoroughbreds, and they were police horses, and down came the squatter mounted on his thoroughbred. We've always had thoroughbred horses, and we're really good at retraining them. We've got some serious expertise that we've developed over hundreds of years in taking the thoroughbred and using him for multiple purposes. Unfortunately, some of that skill's starting to disappear because people are starting to bring in other breeds. But if you want to go out and enjoy yourself and just have a horse that's with you and listening to you and intelligent, then the thoroughbred will take you through to the level that you need to get to in most sports. If you want to be the top cutter in the world, get a quarter horse, because you're going to need a quarter horse to be the best in the world. If you want to be the best dressage rider, you might need a warm blood. But if you want to enjoy what you do on the weekend and you want to get out and have some fun with a horse, then the thoroughbred can do everything that any other horse can do, up to a level that's very enjoyable to most people.